Do you want to play a spooky themed commander that will deal spread damage and terrify your opponents? Well, hi, my name is Anton from Foreign Knights, bringing you commander decks you can build on a budget. And today we're going to be taking a look at Arabella, Abandoned Doll. Arabella is a 1/3 legendary artifact creature toy that reads, whenever Arabella attacks, it deals X damage to each opponent and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control of power 2 or less. So this deck completely revolves around Arabella. The name of the game here is going to be spread damage and making a very large board state in order to enhance that spread as well as life gain. So in this deck, we're going to run a lot of small creatures, things that are going to build us a very big board state. We'll also run some mass token generation, as well as a lot of protection for our commander. That way we can swing with our creepy Annabelle doll and defeat everybody at once. Let's jump into some of the core options that we run in this deck that make it unique, and as with all of our deck profiles here, links will be posted to it in the description down below, so check it out if you want to run it for yourself. Alright, so we're going to break our unique options into a couple of different subsections. So this first subsection we're going to call creatures that create tokens. So we're going to run cards like the Prideful Parent. So when Prideful Parent enters, we're going to generate a 1/1 token, a first simple card, in order to start expanding that board state. Another type of card we are going to run is Dalkovin Pack Beast. We run a couple of these cards that have mobilize. They'll create some temporary tokens, but as for Arabella's effect, they 100% apply. Another card in this category is the Shock Brigade. This also has mobilize, but it also has menace, so a nice secondary effect there. And then the last mobilize card we'll mention is Voice of Victory, where this has the nice added effect of making it so people can't cast spells on your turn. But we're going to run a lot of creatures that allow us to go ahead and make very large board states just by themselves. We're also going to run a couple of other spells that will help do this as well. So, an example of a couple sorceries we will run will be things like our Secure the Wastes. This X spell will allow us to really bump our board state and allow us to be dynamic, so we can go for some surprise kills unless they stop it. We also run Midnight Haunting, very similar effect, but very simple to use. Create 2 additional tokens. But that's a couple examples of some cards that we'll run in order to be generating some additional tokens. Now, we have a lot of tokens in this deck inherently, so we're going to run some assisting cards or some supporting cards that will help with token generation too. So we run Sardok, Master of Buckland. So anytime a small non-token creature is going to enter the battlefield, we're going to automatically be creating some additional non-token creatures. Most of the things in our deck are going to be triggering this and increasing the damage Arabella will be dealing. We also run War Effort. Not only does this give our creatures a small buff, it does also create a token whenever we start attacking. It does go away, not the biggest buff, but still nice to have. But this concept, but a little bit stronger, we run Telenali Summoner. With this card, we're allowed to go ahead and pump it a little bit more. That way we get even additional creatures that enter the battlefield for us. But another aspect of this deck is we do gain a lot of life. So we do run a couple of cards to help bolster this life gain too. So we run a couple of creatures like Dazzling Angel and Core Celebrant. Both these creatures will allow you to gain life when other creatures enter the battlefield, which we will be having a lot with our different token generation effects. And we also run Suture Priest, where not only will we be gaining life, we also have another added burn. So some great ping damage over time. But alright, that's a lot of the core options that we might put in this deck that would be unique to it to help make it run different token generators, different life gain supporters. But let's move into our next section and talk about ramp. How are we going to start getting this deck moving and flowing? So based on our colors, we actually have to run a lot of generic ramp options, things like your classic set of mana rocks. We also run the Recruiter of the Guard, a very good tutor option in your deck. Another generic option that syncs very well is the Ornithopter of Paradise, helps us ramp. And both of these cards are also going to be applying towards Arabella. We run Scholar of New Horizons. This will allow us to go ahead and tap him, remove some counters from creatures, and then go ahead and search for a Plains card. And we also have Sisters of the Flames that can tap for red mana too. Now this deck doesn't have crazy ramp. It is a very low mana cost deck in general. But let's go ahead and talk now about some options that we'll have for draw. How are we going to be getting the cards in our hands that we need to be able to play? So in our colors, we're kind of working with what we have when it comes to draw. So we're going to be running things like the Quirrell's End. We do have to discard a card, but this gets us 2 card draw as well as create some additional tokens, so can't complain there. And we also have Mentor of the Meek, which is going to be one of the main options you're going to want to go ahead and search for and grab in this deck. This will allow when the small creatures enter the battlefield, we can pay 1 and have an additional card draw. So while we unfortunately do have to pay, it is still one of the best options that we have. But alright, that's a quick couple cards to mention that we will run for draw. As we said, not too many options as far as ramp and draw within this deck. But what we do have a lot of is interaction. So jumping into interaction, we need to have a lot of cards in this deck in order to protect our commander. As we mentioned, the deck is going to completely revolve on it. We need to get it out quick, and we need to start moving things very fast. So a couple things we're going to play will be like our Holy Mantle and our Guildscorn Ward. Each of these are going to give us an aspect of protection, either from creatures or from multicolored. We also have Caduceus, Staff of Hermes. Not only will this give us lifelink, as long as we're above 30 health, our creature will have indestructible. And based on Arabella's effect, we should be gaining a lot of life, so we should be in the safe zone here. And then the last card we'll mention in protection is Reconnaissance. This will allow us to pay 0 and remove a creature from combat and return it to untapped. What's very nice about this effect is not only can you do it after damage has been applied, with this effect, we can have the attack trigger begin, have Arabella say, when it's attacking, do the round of ping damage, and then untap it and return it safely. A great option in order to deal damage but have very little to no risk. Moving on from protection cards, we're now going to talk about interaction when it comes to interrupting our opponents. Now we have a lot of generic options within this deck that are within the colors, but a couple of unique options that we run in this type of deck specifically will be things like our Gallant Strike. This will allow us to destroy a target creature of toughness 4 or greater. But we also have some board wipes that should protect our side of the board. So both Martial Coup and Expel the Interlopers will allow us to wipe based on our power. And since we can be selective here, this will keep our side of the board safe and wipe out the big scary monsters of your opponents. But those are some of the key options that we run for interaction in this deck. Let's move into some of the game-changing cards we have when it comes to winning the game. So like we said in general, the win con here is our commander, dealing that damage to everybody and pinging in mass. We have a couple of cards here that can make certain turns a little bit more exciting than others. We already mentioned some for creating creatures in mass like Secure the Wastes, but one card we didn't mention is Moogle's Valor. This card will essentially allow us to go ahead and double our current board state as well as give all of our creatures indestructible. So hopefully Arabella's already going to be pinging everyone for a lot of damage, but if we need to use our tokens for attackers, we can send them out and have no fear of them dying. This is a great power shifter because unlike Secure the Wastes, it doesn't rely on mana. It's just going to be the flat amount of creatures you got doubled. We also run a couple of creatures that will allow us to go ahead and deal some additional ping when things come into play. So we already mentioned the Suture Priest in the life gain section, but we also have the Molten Gatekeeper. Now where Suture Priest is going to deal damage when their opponent's creatures enter the battlefield, Molten Gatekeeper is now in our control, allowing us to ping each opponent based on our creatures entering the battlefield. So while both are good, the Molten Gatekeeper a little bit more impactful as we have complete control of it. Alright, but those are a couple of cards we have for winning the game and some additional X Factor. Now let's wrap up talking about what does it look like in order to pilot this deck. Let's talk about it through each of the phases of the game. So in the early game, we're going to want to play ramp and draw options that we have available to us quickly. Things like our Mentor of the Meek, Sisters of the Flames, as well as playing some cards that will assist us, like Stardock, Master of Buckland, Dazzling Angel, and then playing our commander as soon as possible, as the deck completely will be revolving around Arabella. Moving into the mid game, we're going to want to start playing some of those token generators, our Prideful Parent, Delkavan Pack Beasts, Midnight Haunting, Secure the Wastes, and then moving into cards that will help us protect Arabella and keep her on the field, like Holy Mantle, Guildscorn Ward, and Reconnaissance. So then in the late game, we're going to want to begin to wrap up. So we'll play cards like Tillinali Summoner, which will let us create a large amount of tokens all at once, Moogle's Valor in order to double our board state, wipe our opponents with things like Martial Coup, and Expel the Interlopers, keeping our board state intact, and swinging out with Arabella for the win. Alright, well, that's the deck in the nutshell. Arabella is a very fun commander. Not only does she fit the spooky season, she's also very strong, very fast, and can definitely be built on a budget. If you made it this far, please give us a like and a subscribe. It helps out more than you know. In the comments, let us know what cards you would run in your Arabella decks, as well as if there are any decks that you would like us to cover in the future. Leave that down below too. If you'd like to kickstart your Magic the Gathering collection, visit our website at 4ktcg.com and grab yourself a booster box. Thank you all for watching. I have been Anton from Fortnite, and go out and play some Magic.